Although on that show there was a couple super dark things not dark things, but where we had to stop production.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raelyn Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
So smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright from the Raelyn Nelson Band, back with another fantastic and unnecessary intro.
Yeah, well, this is one, it really... I want to say this one's cool because he was there. I'm sorry. This is not working. Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright from the Raelyn Nelson Band, back with another one of these fantastic and unnecessary intros.
John Heffron. Okay, so we always start off by asking, what music do you remember loving? We got to get the music part out of the way.
First music
you remember loving as a kid.
Perfect. All right.
So,
Let me just, I just, first off, I like how this starts. You know, usually when you do a podcast or something, or at least I could admit, I have a lot of bells, whistles, sounders, stingers. It sounds like very 80s rock. Listen, lock it in and rip the knobs off.
Right. We had the 100,000 watt mother here.
Number one in music, which never makes sense to me.
Right.
Your number one hit, like number one in what number one? What music?
Yeah.
Like, makes no sense.
Where's that chart? Who's making that chart?
Yeah, it's just radio always throw these weird, first music that I ever listened to would probably be I can tell you the first album 45 I ever bought, and I was probably less than first grade, so probably in kindergarten. But I just remember having whatever cost. My dad saying you could spend anything you want, and it was Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head.
Oh, right on.
Because I think that song rocks if you're in kindergarten.
Absolutely.
It started my weird, just crazy love affection for super slow, sad song genre. My whole life, as just like a kid, or even, I grew up in the 80s, so right when it was the smack dab metal, I was still, man, Richard Marx got some good stuff. Like I was always that guy. I was always just, soft AC, even as a little kid. So that was the first record I got. And then I have distinct memories of my mom or my grandpa going to his shop. And I don't even know what he did. He worked in just one of those shops. He pulled the press down and he read there were all these graphics or blueprints, but he kind of drank a lot. So I never, even as an adult, don't know how he did what he did with he's like a tool die cutter.
Right.
I just remember they had that soap that was pink.
Was he missing any fingers?
No, but you wash your hands in this.
Oh, I know what you're talking
soap
about.
That felt like it had shards of glass in it.
Yes.
When you were a little kid.
It was like powdered soap almost.
It was like lava. You're like, that's what, when you get older, you use that type of soap. Yeah. And he was my mom's stepdad, so he's my grandpa, but he's straight hills of Tennessee guy. And I just remember being in his car in the country that he listened to, which was probably 40s country, 40s, 50s.
Old school.
That stuff.
Yeah.
Like I still, to this day, I'll find that channel on a satellite and I just put it on. I smell his cigarettes and his Caprice Classic.
Right.
He was just no Pall Mall, no filter.
Hank Senior.
Always just with the window, when they were up and you're choking to death as a kid.
Sure.
No car seat, front seat, middle, hump seat.
No seatbelts. Don't bother with those.
Yeah, and that's even to this day, that type of country is my favorite.
Yeah, mine too.
I'm 51-ish. I'm not, there's 80 stuff that I like, but I like old school, I'm poor country.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Country now that's like, hey, we're going to the islands and we're going to take our jet skis and we'll go around. I don't want to hear you can afford a Jamaican trip.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear you can afford an island getaway. you're not country to me. If you can have a vacation and you're going to sing about your feet in the sand, I'm out. Like, it bugs me like that. I have
Yeah, that's like me. I like my blues played by old dead black men. You know?
I don't know why I get so mad. There was Kenny Chesney covered a Sam Hunt song called "Come Over." And, Sam Hunt, you can make the case, the very newer country, older. He kind of sing raps. Mm-hmm. I just think he's funny because every other song he's telling somebody to just come to his house. He's just like every other song. He's just come over. You're just sitting there just not doing anything. I think you should come over. Like, it's every song is come over or I'm coming over. Or he's just not. He's just. And then I think Kenny Chesney had a video and to that song, and he's singing it, but he's in this $4 million cigarette boat, and then you see this crazy mansion like in Malibu, and there's some girls just in it alone, just staring out of her big thing, and he's playing the song. I'm like, nobody relates to that.
Right.
If you're gonna sing about vacation, it's you had to borrow your cousin's nephew, brother-in-law's sister's cabin for the weekend. You borrowed it.
Yeah.
Somebody knew. You don't have a cabin that doesn't lock their doors. That's the weekend you're gonna have. Right. I don't want to hear that it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, stop. So that part of country, and then my mom was like huge. Obviously, being from Detroit, anything that was danced on Soul Train,
Right.
like I just think Michael Jackson, Rock With You, all that type of disco. My mom loved.
Just post Motown stuff.
Was she a dancer? Did she
dance it like she would? Yeah, and then I loved it. Like I'd watch that, and then
I loved Soul Train as a kid.
I bought the DVD set. It just makes me happy.
Right.
But you know what it does? It reminds me of and this very specific group that would get this. But Soul Train was on Saturdays at 11 or 12 o'clock in the morning, right after cartoons. Right. So then I love Soul Train because my mom would usually get ready. I'd hear her in the bathroom getting ready. I lived with my mom on the weekends. And then I knew we were going to go to the mall. So I really like Soul Train because I know, okay, she's getting ready. I'm going to watch this. And then we go to the mall and I get to buy some Star Wars stuff. So
Plus in that era, the mall was
the place to be.
Yeah.
So
such good.
Anything could
it was
happen
the
at the mall.
social media of the day.
Yeah. So that was like but I'm such a huge music guy. I can, again, maybe it's my age because radio, not sound crazy old, but radio when I was growing up, it wasn't this is, R&B, this is country, this is what like a station would play. You'd play in the 80s, new wave, what quote unquote heavy metal. Looking back, you go, oh, they really weren't. But then you play Billy Joel into, Poison.
Yeah.
So it was all over the place.
Yeah.
And then it started jumping around. That's okay. If you're left-handed female who likes bands with the word W in it, this is yours. This is your station.
We're the top station of them all.
We're number one with left-handed women who like words with W. W.
But it's true. We talked to Kathleen Madigan about the same thing even the late 70s and 80s. You could be exposed to a whole lot of music just turning on the top 40 station because, it was... to your point, it wasn't so defined in each radio station. Like the big one would play a little bit of some disco, some folk stuff, a little bit of rock and roll.
Yeah, comedy switched that way too. When I started doing comedy in the 80s, people would show up to comedy shows, they'd buy a ticket and then they would see who they saw. Mm-hmm. So you'd always have you win the crowd maximus. You weren't going in front of your crowd.
Yeah.
It was a potluck, and it was every group you can possibly think of that were in those rooms. And then over time, they ended up dividing it up and theming nights. So, there was Asian night, it would just keep changing. So now your audience wasn't mixed. Like it was all divided. So they go, if I'm A, I can't like B because they're not A. It kind of sucked. Yeah.
So let's get into that.
Well, who was the first comedian you remember looking up to? Was your mom, was your grandpa into comedy? Like
I was a big first stand-up. Like I'd watch on The Tonight Show. Obviously, stuff was on, and then I got to stop aging myself all the time, but there wasn't a lot of exposure to. You watched the Tonight Show, but there wasn't Comedy Central. There wasn't specials. I think HBO came out with like young comedian specials right around then with Kinnison and Dice Clay.
Right.
So probably I was mathematically maybe 13, 14. So it's kind of like that was really, Eddie Murphy obviously would come. And then I was such a fan. Then I went back and my mom got me like old George Carlin, old even Bob Newhart. And then that's when I kind of like started enjoying the art of stand-up, like trying to figure out like, well, what are they doing here? Yeah. Almost like a kid would pick up a guitar and learn. I love music so much. I do not know how to play an instrument. Well, I played a trombone when I was in 8th or 9th grade.
Oh, we're always looking for a trombone player.
Yeah, it's the thing. I still have trouble getting a 7th position, right. So I kind of fake it. But yeah, so when I always hear people, I sit down and picked up a guitar. It fascinates me. But I kind of did that with comedy, where I just figure out what are the beats, what are the things here, like what's the trigger point that makes you laugh.
When did you know you had a brain for it?
Well, you know what? I was a pretty shy kid. I'm not over like, hey, everybody look at me. But I think I was one of those kids in school where I could make the teacher laugh, but I wasn't the annoying one.
Oh, that's an art right there.
So you would do it, and then I kind of started using that where I wasn't. So I'd go up and I'm like, I don't know how to do number 7, and then you kind of trick them into doing it for you. And they're like, "Do you see what I did?" You're like, "Oh yeah, I got it." Next. So you weren't opposed if you were like, I got kicked out of class a couple times, but for the most part,
pretty savvy.
Yeah. And then once you started having to give speeches and stuff, I just kind of figured it out. Yeah.
Public speaking.
Yeah, I did in college. That's how I started. But I've always tied in, comedy with music. Even, I don't know if I'm going all over the place now. You can swing me back. I've even up until 2 or 3 years ago, I was really trying to figure out the exact same parallels between writing stand-up and writing a song. So I was taking all these speed songwriting classes. I'm just obsessed with writing a song. There's this guy.
And you've written songs?
Oh, I have. I don't have a way to play it. So what I would do is I would go to $25beats.com or whatever it's called, and they have all royalty-free music. So I would play that, and then I'd do that. I'd figure out
put some syllables down.
I would just put it thing because keep in mind I don't know how to write like verses or phrases or thing. And then I took this guy, something Nash or something speed writing, how to write a horrible song. And he kind of takes you through this process. I don't know if it's the right process or if he's just trying to sell a PDF for $10.
Right.
But you kind of like a quick, how to write a song title in 5 seconds or something. And he tells you, he's like, this song we're about to write is going to suck, but I'm going to show you how quick. And then there's these templates. Here's my life now. Here's my life after I met you. Here's my life before. Here's my life before. Then I met you. Here's it now. Here's it now.
Okay.
And I'm done.
Or old word. Here's how things used to be. Here's how they now. Here's this and this until I found this, and now this is like. So you go, okay, that's kind of like doing stand up. It's the same.
Did you ever go to any classes for stand up?
No.
Because it kind of feels like, well, you can't really go to class.
25comedy.com?
Yeah, right. Where it's just people laughing and like really big laughing, like, okay, what would I say here? So then my exercise, and I would play it for you if I had a way. So I wrote 2 songs, and I just messed around with the words, and then I went to some rhyme zone. And I'm like, oh, this whole thing is like sing-songy, rhymey. I want to go a little deeper than that. And I'm like, nah. So I wrote 2 songs. I went on this website called Fiverr.com, found somebody to sing it for me. And then I would listen to him going, I think that needs a saxophone. And then I think that needs, and then I'd go to the Fiverr again and go and find a saxophone player and just go, I just need beats. And then I'd grab like some app I have on my stuff and try to put together like a song. It was super fascinating. And it would just take up a lot of time.
It's fun too, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it was a good writing exercise because I would also go, I'm going to write the saddest song or subject, the saddest song ever, because I believe comedy is the same thing. And then out of that, what's the comedy version of this crazy
Sad song.
sad song. So when my mom passed away years and years ago, but when she was in hospice, the nurse lady said, just keep talking to her. Hearing's the last to go. So then after my mom passed, I think I was sitting around and I just wrote down when you tell me what you heard. So then I'm like, okay, that's a song. That's going to be When I See You Again. Did you hear when I said this, and this? And then you tell me what you heard. I'm like, oh, that's a country song, right? And then the joke thing ended up being, if you have older kids and you have a storage unit, your best thing you can get for your kids is a bonfire and just burn your shit.
It's true.
So your kids don't have to go through all your dumb stuff because it's horrible. Like, so out of this kind of like really sad like thing, I came up with some dumb storage, but I kind of needed, it's weird. So I kind of needed to get myself to almost like start crying to go, okay, I'm tough. I'm not going to cry. What would make me not cry? And then joke about it.
Now, did you make the song, was it something relatable with what you had gone through or somebody you knew had gone through?
Which one?
The sad song.
That was the one when my mom passed. I wanted to go. Did you tell me what you heard? And then it was like all this,
and then the other
theme,
one was just out of that one.
Just out of that one. So the theme of that was going to be when I'm up in heaven and I see you, and we were sitting there. Did you hear this, and this?
Yeah.
And then I don't know how the storage unit, but so then I was like, oh, I'm going to try that technique.
So the question I got, it would be interesting because you've done both. When you write a new bit, I don't know if you technically write it down, but it's just there and you have to go out and try it. And there's nothing like when you finish writing a song, you can play it over and over and over again. And it's fun, at least for us, it's fun to do. It's like, wow, but like, where's the payoff like that with joke writing? Because it's not immediate because you have to kind of put it out in front of people almost to see if it works.
Yeah. And especially now with, like COVID, I used to travel up until COVID, 35 weeks a year, 30 weeks a year for 30 years.
Right.
So there was always, you knew you're going to be on stage 8 or 9 hours a week. You do 5 or 6 shows or whatever. So there's always that time. But over COVID, I had a couple shows here or there and then things would get shut down. But you'd be like, oh, that's a great new bit. And then you'd sit home for 2 months. And then when you go to try to remember that, because I've never written a joke down in my life. Okay. I don't know how people do set lists. I get too stressed. Like I'll sit down at the computer and going, okay, I'm going to force myself to write. And they just stare. And I'm like, okay, ever go there? I'm like, oh, wait, what there? THEI? Oh, no, it's THEE. And I get too locked up on typing or whatever. So then I would try, with my podcasting material, I'm such a music guy. I find music beds.
Right.
And that music bed will dictate, like I have this weird ear. If I hear the music bed, I'll start talking at the level or whatever, the energy of the music bed. And I'll just start talking about whatever. And then
it's like being in a jam band almost.
And then I'll record that. And then I had a transcription service. I would just send that babble to, and then I would kind of go read through and go,
that's interesting.
That's a funny line. And, it's more work than most, like you mentioned Kathleen Madigan. She's one of my best friends. And I've done a few shows with her, but we'll have breakfast in the morning. Something will come up on CNN. And then we'll drive someplace and somebody will say something. And then I'll watch her that night. And her whole hour is what she just saw on CNN that morning.
Yeah.
The guy that came into the bus or whatever and said something. And then one baby like, how the crap did you just knock out a full new hour in 30 minutes?
Right.
Like, how did you,
She's hilarious.
She's good
too.
at relating anything to stories from her past or
in the present. We've sucked her out for beers a couple of times because she lives up the street.
Yeah.
But just hanging out, constantly. She's hilarious.
Oh, just in general, she's got just such a great, cadence and just,
I told Raelyn we're about to have your whole season of Last Comic Standing.
Oh,
on.
Nice.
So what was your...
Well, before you get to that, like, how did you start? Like, what was your intro into comedy?
Oh, yeah. What was your first gig like?
So bullet point version of it. I would go to open mic nights in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I went to college right outside of Ann Arbor. It was just Tuesday nights. I think I was 18, so you could get in. So I felt like I was going to a bar.
And you grew up in the area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Felt like I was going to a bar. I'm skipping so much of this. I just I had a forensic class at college. When I signed up for it, I thought it was forensic, like police stuff, like dead bodies, forensics.
Oh, yeah.
It was competitive speech.
Oh,
I didn't know. I literally thought I was.
What was it called? Competitive speech?
It was called forensic something. I was like,
Oh,
this is
okay.
cool. There's blood
Yeah.
splatter. We're
Yeah.
gonna take blue light in hotels and say, bro, like this would be fun. This could be like awesome. It was competitive speech, and I never showed up again for the class.
well, I gotta ask, what does that involve? Is it debate?
He didn't
is
know.
it-
He didn't go.
Well,
That's the point.
it's debate. It's like they give you a topic, and you got like impromptu
okay.
speeches.
I gotcha.
But there's a proper way to do speeches with your hands at very key moments.
Right.
You know, and to conclude with my 5 points of number one, like just think of every horrible like politician speech and just go, ugh, those
Yeah.
are Mad Libs. Those are so easy. It's so easy to. So I had a teacher that said, or professor said, you haven't shown up to class. We have a competition on Saturday. You have to give a speech, and if you do, you won't fail the class. I'm like, okay, I don't want to. And it's a humorous speech, and I think I wrote some quick stuff about growing up with my family or something. And then when I did the competition, they said, okay, that speech has no structure. There's no structure in that thing. It was funny, but there's no structure. But I didn't care because now I didn't fail the class.
Right.
I'm like, whatever.
I just killed. Who cares?
Good luck, you guys overanalyzing speeches.
Right.
It's dumb. Right. So then I went to the comedy club that night, and the waitress says, hey, we have open mics, everything. You guys want to sign up? And the waitress was super gorgeous. And me and my friend sat in her section just every time because of that, where I was like, let's just go. I mean, we're 18. She's probably 20, 21.
Right.
You know, she's a college girl. We just out of high school. And then I said, I'll sign up. Just totally like, oh, yeah, probably. You know, I'll probably do it right now. I'll sign up. So she signed me up. That waitress is the actress Lucy Liu.
No
That's
way.
how, like charter. Yeah. So
Wow, that's weird.
So she was a waitress there. That's a million songs about that.
Have you talked to
and-
her at all?
No,
since?
no. I've mentioned like she's totally pushed my life into whatever life it is. So I got to figure almost everybody in my life is because of comedy,
Right.
right? Like I'm trying to like maybe elementary school friends. But everybody else in my circle, I only knew through that. So she basically pushed me into that life and never talked to her.
Crazy.
I've even mentioned on podcasts, and we have mutual friends, and I haven't even gotten. I'm like, you know what? I think it's a better story if I never talk to her.
That's a good point.
Just in case she's a tool, you know? And
Yeah,
then I'm
it
like,
sucks.
oh my God, my life is a sham.
Right. I've been lying to myself
Yeah, I've
all
been
these
lying.
years.
This woman pushed me in. So then I went on stage that first night or whatever open mic. It did super well, but that's like the trick of stand up. The comedy gods do that to everybody.
She's like, this
Give
is
you
easy.
a really good first night or even second night. They're like, you're so good. You're probably a prodigy. You should just keep doing it. And then like the third time is when you eat it just hard, where you're like, what the fuck? Yeah. So the first couple ones went super well. Yeah.
And what made you keep doing it?
I did it through college, and then I started getting paid to MC. But at the time, there were, who cares, there were 10 comedy clubs maybe within 3-hour driving from where I was going to college. And then I would MC most of the
Right.
time. So I was working like almost every weekend at a club. I mean, I was making $25 to host or $150 a week. But keep in mind, age-wise, my rent was only $75.
Right.
And I was doing so I would get in the car and drive 2 or 3 hours, host the show, jump in, drive all the way back, go to college. but I was 20-something.
I was about to say, and that's a 20-year-old dream.
Yeah.
Bills
Yeah,
are paid.
I
I don't
never-
need much, and I'm out going around. Did the same thing in bands, you know.
Yeah,
And it's the same era too. We're roughly the same age, so.
Yeah, I don't remember hating any, like, well, you just didn't know any different.
And we talked about how untethered you were back then too. When you went out on the road, there was no cell phones, no anything. You had a quarter to call somebody or a dime when I started.
We jumping way ahead, then I started performing at more, like, I would do 150, 200 colleges a year. You know, this is
How was that? Because most comics hate that, but maybe it's
I
established
I
ones.
was also 20-something, so I was just out of college. My act's always been clean, so I've never had to worry about did I offend anybody.
And those paid well, I would imagine.
Looking back, I wish I would have. Trust me, you look back and you go, I wish I would have just saved. I wish that there would have been one. Somebody said, you know, you should keep this because I was making crazy money for being as young as I was.
Yeah.
You know, whatever the math was, probably $1,000 a show, doing 150, 200 a year at 21. You know what I mean? And not even in horrible shows too. By the way, Raph Skeller's at noon. Oh, you know, we used to walk around. You'd have to walk into Student Union, getting pre-social media, and you'd have to go up table to table. So if I saw you two sitting there, I'd have to walk up and go, Hey, Tim, I'm John Heffron, I'm a comedian. Tonight I'm going to be performing at the Pit at 8 o'clock. Just letting you know. And then you have to move to the next people as they're highlighting their books, just looking at you going, what?
Get away from me.
Yeah, this is horrible. This is horrible.
That's why you get paid so well for these.
You know? But, yeah.
Did you tour with anybody a lot back then or anybody that hung in there with you?
No,
did you have it cornered?
No, yeah, I did. I ended up doing so I lived in Michigan. And then when I graduated from college, I went to Chicago. Because I felt I need to move, but I was too scared to move to L.A. or New York. So I lived in Chicago, but that's when I started doing all those colleges. And then I eventually end up in L.A., but I didn't have like a bunch of young comics now in groups. I didn't have a clan.
Right,
I didn't
class
have
that you kind of sort of came
a
up.
group. So I always kind of felt like I lone wolfed most of my career. Because you roll into a city or New York or LA, and I already felt I was pretty established.
Right.
I've done comedy, let's say 5 or 6 years. I wasn't new, you know, performing on stage. You know, my material was going to show that I was a little well polished.
Right.
But I wasn't in those cliques. And those, you know, those existed.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
you know,
sure.
Back then, you know, you'd walk in and you'd see all these comics you kind of know, and they'd box you out at a table.
I can imagine.
You know, even guys that I'm good friends with now, I just remember back then.
It's also the time and place and age of that time. You know, everybody's coming up and, you know, clawing and scratching and shit.
Yeah, then it switched. There was this thing in I hate using him as an example because he's hilarious, but there was this alternative scene that was new when I moved to LA. So I'm doing don't you hate it when your mom does, and like family,
right.
Boy, you know, you go to Gallenberg and da-da-da-da. I would do travel, material about traveling with your family. And they come to LA and then they had this alternative scene where it's like people would go on stage with notes and they would dress really bad. They would dress like the hoodies and they would just try not to get laughs. Because you weren't in, like if you're trying to get laughs.
Anti-comedy, yeah.
Yeah, and people are like, this alternative scene is pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, we call it bombing. It's called bombing where I'm from.
Yeah.
This is my Detroit blue collar and me going, isn't the purpose to have like people laugh while you're there?
Right.
It's a little egotistical to read. And, my dad even looking at some of the names back here. I remember I dressed super crappy once. I'm in college. And my dad came and saw me, and he's like, you're dressing like it's laundry day on stage. You know, my dad's a truck driver, and I'm like, well, I don't have anything. And then he goes, I'll never forget, he goes, do you ever see Kenny Rogers? And he goes, you have to dress like Kenny Rogers on stage. And I'm like, I'm not. What are you talking? I'm not wearing rhinestones. It's the '80s. I'm not wearing a rhinestones. He's like, no, he dresses like people pay money to come and see him at a show. He dresses like he's at a show. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not. Dad, I'll give you that reference, but I'm not ever dressing like Kenny Rogers on stage. But to this
it's a shame you didn't do it once. That would have been a nice video to have. Just roll out.
Yeah, I probably went to a face.
Grow the beard out.
Yeah. But to this day, I still always go, I don't feel like putting up a button up or something. I know it's so dumb, nobody cares, but I'm like, okay. Because it's
good enough for Kenny.
Yeah, the new trend, I see a lot of my comic friends, everyone wears like winter jackets on stage or something, and I always just go, you look like you were just so disinterested. You can't even unzip your jacket to perform.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
it's dumb, nobody cares, but it's just like a weird.
So you think you could wear just anything, be kind of sloppy, and be fine with it on stage, or
I have to.
because your dad said that you want to?
Yeah, right. I still have that thing. I think at my age now, I could probably get it. Well, now it's about hiding the gut. So now, now the winter jacket on stage maybe is a better move.
Right.
So you can't, unless I get Spanx or something like that.
Get Heffron's new parka, man.
Yeah,
They're
just to
fantastic.
kind of, suck it in,
Right.
or something. I think. I'm going to kind of do show and tell as I'm talking, guys, only because I just pulled up this picture. As I say that, I found an old picture of me from my first Tonight Show.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And I always told people the story about how I dress really nice. And then I saw I didn't want to slow this down.
No, you're
No,
not.
you're good. You're not.
I found an old picture of my first Tonight Show, and I'm not even wearing a jacket. I went unbuttoned.
Oh yeah, so it's a button down,
and
a blue button down
and that
shirt.
that was a thing though. Do I tuck it in or do I
You
not?
look so cute. Look
And
at you,
and
teeny tiny baby.
That was the
White shirt
discussion.
underneath,
White
jeans.
still jeans. Actually, wearing the same exact.
Yeah,
outfit.
you're wearing the same thing right now.
We've come
pretty
full
much.
circle.
I kind of, I mean, I've lost, I got my very first Tonight Show, Dolly Parton was the other guest.
Oh,
So
wow.
I do this thing, I sit down, and the whole time I'm like,
Did you touch her boobs?
well, she touched my leg, and
With her boobs?
my dad with her boob. That's all she did. Yeah.
That's the first thing that's going to hit you when she walks in.
Yeah, you can't even. And I sit down, and she says something to me like after the set. I do it, and I sit down, and I just had like a out of body experience. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't throw up, I didn't memorize, I didn't pee myself. I had all those.
Did you
thoughts.
remember any of it, or was it kind of just a wash?
It was a while. I don't even. I remember saying one joke that I wasn't okayed or wasn't on the list. Just whatever just triggered into this. It was like a
Is that
fear.
okay if you do that? What happens?
No,
Do they get?
I saw the guy who goes through your joke list. I'm literally, so I'm talking like I'm looking at you guys, and I see him out of my peripheral over here, and I see him take his head. There's like bleachers, kind of, is where the audience, and I see him just take his head and go. He just smashes his head against the bleachers like this, fuck, or whatever.
Dare you, yeah.
I don't even know what the.
At least you weren't working blue at the time. That'd have been worse, I guess.
Well, I think it was. I think it was something. Well, not even blue. However the joke goes, I don't even remember. It was something to the stage of we all get older eventually. All those condoms in our pocket become Tums, or something,
Right.
or something like that. I don't
Right.
remember how it went. It's not dirty.
Right.
Yeah.
You can say condoms. I
Right.
didn't say
Right.
what you do with them.
Right.
Yeah. So then I get done, and Dolly Parton's sitting next to me. And I'm so nervous. I'm just my mouth. And then there you go. We're going to come back from commercial and talk to you more. Have another one or two jokes ready. And that wasn't the plan. So now I'm like, oh, and then.
But it's also a good sign.
Yeah. And then Dolly leans over, right? And she puts her hand on my leg. And she's like, that was really when you. And she just repeated one of my jokes. And I'm like, dang. I go, I've been to Dollywood so many times. And then the light came back on. And then I'm just like this. I'm like, my God, my last, I wasn't now I'm thinking about Dollywood, and I'm not even.
I don't have any Dollywood material.
I don't even have, and then I did some family vacation thingy, but coming back from commercial, you saw her hand on my leg, and then, so you're like, we're on, and then she goes up, and my dad was like, did Dolly Parton touch you? Did she touch your leg? Do you realize what I would have done? Do you realize I would have killed my entire family when I was when I was a
hysterical.
teenager or when I was in the army, and if Dolly Parton wanted to touch my leg? I'm like, yeah.
So how long were you doing comedy? I would think that the last comic standing
Oh, yeah,
kind of
that's the story.
was a jump, at least in your, exposure, as they say.
Yeah, that
Was there a night and day kind of difference once you did that show? Because
yeah, and it was one of those things where so I went. So I'm doing stand up. I moved to LA. I'm in LA 2 weeks at the most. I mean, I just went to IKEA and bought furniture, and I was going to start putting stuff together. And then I got a call from a radio station in Detroit asking if I want to be part of their morning show. And then I'm like, Danny
Bonaduce.
Yeah, and I'm like, I just moved to LA. And they're like, well, it's probably not going to start for, this radio legend in Detroit was retiring. They're like, after Dick Burton leaves, then there's going to be a little bit of, so it's probably going to be like 5 months from now. And we'll call you when it's a definite go, but would you be interested? So then he kind of started talking money, and I was like, okay, I'll move back. I'll keep an apartment
getting a little more
here.
interested as we talk.
Yeah, so then I went back there, and then I did morning radio. I never did it before with Danny Bonaduce from the Partridge Family, but it was very morning radio-y. And then I'm sitting in focus group meetings. So then, you'd have a talk about something, and then you'd see focus groups of 40 people would be with dials. Like if you talked and they didn't like what you're talking about, they'd go up or down. So then that'd be in your head. And it was right when it was boy band era, 100%. It was 1995. So there's songs I hear to this day that I have like this weird reaction. Like if I hear Mariah Carey's "Always Be My Baby," I get this stress thing that I'm late. Because that was the first song at the bottom of the hour, 10 minutes before our show started, right? They had the same,
right.
So I knew the rotation. So it was that song, and then it would go into Counting Blue Cars, Dishwalla, into, Celine Dion, into maybe not Hanson yet, but coming close. And I'd always feel like I was late for work because I'd have to leave at 3.
A lot of your favorite bands in that group.
Yeah, right? I'd have to leave for work at like 3:30 in the morning. Which was just horrible anyway. You'd always leave at 3:30, and then there'd be, I never forget, there's a hand wash, car wash, whatever, right? Do it yourself with the spray guns. I remember just all the time I would always look, and every once in a while you'd see somebody in there at like 3:30, 3:45 a.m., like spraying off their car. I'm like, man, that dude is getting rid of evidence. You're not washing your car. Yeah,
there's nobody here. It's wide open. This is the best time to come.
So all that era was all that type of music.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was a little torturous, because it was very, it was all very boy bandy, which I'm actually kind of a fan of.
I'm an NSYNC girl.
NSYNC girl.
Yeah.
Hanson. I couldn't be a bigger Hanson fan.
Hanson.
You don't like Hanson?
Or I remember them.
The thing about Hanson is, so they sung their songs. Now I'm going to defend them. They sung all and wrote their own songs for that album
and played
bop or whatever they played, and then they grew up into this kind of indie acoustic band. Their songs and how they play instruments.
They still do things.
And they have really good. But nobody gave them cred because they sang Bop, which is a song they wrote 9.
By the way, a catchy tune.
It's a great... Yeah, so...
There's a reason it was so popular.
Yeah, 3 brothers, and they're not...
They did a record, or one of them with...
AJR's the new Hanson.
Bunny Carlos from Cheap Trick, and one of the Hanson guys, and one of the guys from Smashing Pumpkins. And somebody else made a record...
With Hanson? With those guys?
Yeah, I think it was just the singer of Hanson, but it was a strange...
Which one?
Zach?
Taylor?
Zach?
Who's
the other one? Isaac? Is there an Isaac?
Isaac is the brother.
The homely one?
They're all brothers.
One of them
What
was
do you mean,
old.
That's true. The brother, he's the drummer, I meant to say.
Oh, yeah. Who was the one in the middle?
Maybe he'll drum with them.
Taylor.
Kind of the
Taylor.
lead singer.
He's Taylor.
He was him. It's
Yeah.
him, Bunny
Cool
Carlos
hair,
from
he
Cheap
wore
Trick.
All of them had cool
Bandanas.
hair, right?
Bandanas.
Yeah.
I remember the drummer kid was in our studio, and the traffic woman called him Sweetie. And he literally, I don't know how old he is, 7, 8. Looks at her and goes, "Don't call me Sweetie. Just don't call me
like one
Sweetie."
of the Ramones.
There's literally like 10,000 people outside, like because they found out they were in studio. Yeah, I asked who Brandy Moore, right? Is she on This Is Us?
Oh, Mandy Moore.
Mandy Moore.
Yeah.
But there was Mandy
There was-
Moore. I thought she was an intern at our station. She was walking around. I think she was with like an AR rep. And I'm like, oh, hey, how are you, John? Nice. And she's like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. And I start talking. And I'm like, have you been here long? She's like, no, just today. It was weird thing. I'm like, hey, are you going to McDonald's later? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, and I like pulled out cash, and I was like, can you give me like a chicken biscuit and like a thing? And then she's like, I don't work here. I'm like, oh, you don't? And she's like, no. And she said her name, and I was still clueless. And I just went in the studio, and the news girl was like, is that our intern? I'm like, no, it's
Brandy Moore.
And then
It's Brandy Shore.
And then Bonaduce or goes, hey, we're gonna have a obnoxious, sarcastic Brandy, like I'm a candy, whatever she's saying.
Yeah, Candy.
Yeah.
I'm missing you like candy.
Yeah. And then she came in, and I looked forward. I didn't know. She had like her agent, her dad, her thing, and I'm literally going,
Don't make eye contact.
The same thing happened with Jessica Simpson. I was like, we got another intern. I think she's a promo girl or something. She's gonna be a wreck. And she came in, and then we were like, "Why this dad is like creepy." There's like a dad like following her, and then she
Why
starts.
is the dad following the intern?
Yeah. And then her pants split. Yeah, I remember. And she's like, I got leather pants, and I got a hole just up and down my leg. And I don't know how old she is. She's like 6. She's just that age. And even me in my 20s, I'm smart enough. I'm looking straight up at the ceiling. I'm not having any part of this. I got a crack near my butt and my pants as some dad's videotaping it. I'm like, not being part of this.
Yes, sir.
But that station we got to work with, I mean, we put on like every concert ever, and at the time there were all these concerts, Jingle Ball or all these names, and now from being in doing radio for the short time, I realized when I was a kid and saw those, like, this is fun festival. There's like 6 or 7 bands here. At the time, our radio company was the biggest in the country, and they basically forced all of those bands to be at a Jingle Ball.
Right.
So like it wasn't them. Maybe it was. It rhymes with Mere Channel. Oh wait, and would go. Well, you're gonna be at the Jingle Ball. No, we don't feel like playing it.
We're not
Got
gonna play your music anymore.
140 stations that we're no longer. We're gonna stick your stuff at 12:07 a.m.
Yep.
So I'm sorry. Are you go? Okay, you'll be there. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. We got your rider. We're gonna put stuff in there. You'll eat it.
You'll be fine.
Yeah. And then
See you on Tuesday.
yeah. You're gonna. Oh yeah, we have a meet and greet for you too.
Right.
Okay. Bye. Thank you. And while you're in Detroit, you're also gonna hit Toledo, and then we're gonna hit you to Columbus and Cincinnati. So I got to meet a lot of bands that way, and it was fun.
Yeah.
I got to play on stage with Amy Grant was a highlight of my life.
Oh, yeah. Love Amy Grant.
But then I got fired, so then we got.
What'd you sing with Amy Grant? Wait a minute. Don't just.
Well, I played the
baby.
egg,
Oh.
the egg thing.
Yeah, they called it an egg.
Every band that I'd come in, I did with like Hootie and the Blowfish. I did with Edwin McCain. I did it.
This is
I did it with
hilarious.
Delamitri, there's a band called Delamitri, which is one of my favorite bands ever. Psychedelic Furs, like the more people that would say no, the more we made it a thing.
That is
Whether I was going to
hysterical.
get on stage, because we'd have callers call.
Is there a video compilation of this somewhere?
I don't think it was just in that era where
Before
there's not,
cell phones
But
or-
if we had a guest on and they were kind of being like a tool, then our listeners would know. They would call and be like, "Hey, is Heffron playing the egg?" It enhances, and they'd like say the dumbest thing, and then the artist, if they were kind of jerky, they'd always go, "Well, we got to." I'm like, and then my case was always. Really? Is me playing an egg in a corner going to throw you guys off, timing wise? Right. Is it that big of a thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the cowbell. It's the egg.
I watch you rehearse. You're singing the tracks anyway. I
think the tempo is going to stay the same. I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure you guys are going to be able to do this. All right.
That's hysterical.
Sugar Ray, there's some lettuce and sandwich back there for you. So I got to do all that, but then, like every radio show, we got fired. And I was upset about that. And then,
But while you're doing that, are you giving any serious consideration to stand up, or is like
I'm doing stand up at the same time.
Oh, so this is going
So
concurrently.
I kind of, but then
So you
now,
get the day gig to pay for stand up.
but now I'm doing, doing theaters like in Michigan, and I
so-
kind of have this little bubble.
Yeah.
Right. So then when I got fired from that, and I went back to LA, I kind of had this different, because I was eating it in LA. I was auditioning bad. I was just on stage. I just couldn't. I was just kind of bombing.
Right.
I don't know what the disconnect was. But now I came back with a little cash in the bank, pseudo fake celebrity in my brain, because I just had 5 years of not being able to go anywhere. And I went to every sporting event. Like it was
Right.
all just dumb.
Like,
It was all
I'm
ego.
here. Yeah.
But that helped me when I went back to LA.
The confidence.
Yeah, I just needed
Yeah.
to kind of give it was false sense, and it was just completely manufactured. But then right after that, I auditioned for Last Comic. Went down to Florida. Then they had auditions here in Nashville at Zany's, and I was like, well, I'll have a layover in Nashville, and I'll just go to that audition, and then I'll fly back up to Michigan. I think that's why. And then I auditioned here in Nashville for Last Comic, and then ended up winning that. Then just going through that whole process of that show.
What was the show like? Was it fun? I mean, there was a bunch of funny people on there, I'm sure.
On my season, it was. And it was, keep in mind, it was 2004, 5-ish, so reality shows were new.
Yeah.
Like they're horrible now.
And I
but-
still think, not to blow smoke, but that was probably the best season. When you go top to bottom, the comics on your season. there
Yeah,
were some
Andy did it
killers
different
on there.
where we performed. Like I probably, over the course of my show, or my season, I maybe did 25 minutes of material, which that was having me do. I was doing 5 or 6 minutes of material every night, or not every night, but every week on NBC in front of. We had pretty high ratings, 15 million people.
It was huge.
Every week I was performing. So then over the course of 7, 8 weeks, now you've seen me. That's a big chunk of people. So that's why it was good. And then they switched it. All the other seasons were like 2-minuters, 90-second.
They were trying to stir up drama more than just the comedy.
Yeah, kind of like what they do in like America's Got Talent. I don't know how people can even decide if they like a comic in 90 seconds. I don't even know how
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah.
It's true. And we talked about how the voice shows, like you guys had to have some kind of chops because to your point, if you're doing 25 minutes over a show and you can't repeat stuff you killed the week before, you guys had to at least have something. The voice shows, you don't have to have anything. You just show up if your voice is decent. You don't have to have put in any time. So
Yeah.
the early Last Comic Standing seemed to me to be a little more legit because just the people that were on there, you had to be. Now, granted, Dat Fan won season 1. But
Yeah, that was season 1, and then for season. So they didn't want anybody who did any TV season 1 of that show. Season 2, they go, okay, we need, because then they realize it's not a place to have open mic night.
Right.
You could have people that just bring it, or the show's gonna suck. So
Yep.
then they open it up for people who have been on things.
Right.
Which was smart. So ours was the first season where there was a lot of,
Funny people.
Catherine Madigan was on there, Alonzo Bowden, Tammy Pescatelli, Gary Goldman.
We talked to Gary last week. Todd
Was
Glass
Todd-
we've talked
yeah.
to.
Todd
Todd
Glass, yeah.
I mean, killers.
Gary's, all a monster, But those shows, that show, listen, it was family. I have people coming to my shows now with their 20-something-year-old kids and, the parent, where they go, we used to watch your season together.
Aw, yeah.
you
That's
know?
gotta be
so there is
weird
a
and
little,
cool, though.
Yeah, so
Like-
it was. I knew even from doing, and this is where my morning radio helped from the focus groups and the thing. I knew how to be really family friendly. So everyone else was all like, "It's the art of comedy." Where I kind of treated it as, no, there are kids voting with their parents, and I want the most votes, so I'm going to do the material that gets people to vote. That's why we're here,
Right.
or I wouldn't be wasting time. Yeah.
A lot of people like myself who like the edgy stuff anyway, they can't be bothered to vote. They're just watching it anyway. I mean, you got the Heartland, and they're going out and actually actively going out and voting.
I wore, and they didn't say anything. I wore, people from Detroit or in Michigan are very proud of being from Michigan.
Right.
So almost every T-shirt I had said the word Michigan or Detroit on it. And it made it past the censors.
Flying the flag.
Yeah, like one time I had a shirt that said Detroit Soul. And it was in like the 70s, and they're like, you can't wear that shirt, because it's a brand. I go, it's not a brand. It's just 2 words. There's no Detroit Soul brand.
Right.
It's just a thing. And that was actually and then the wardrobe people are like, you can just wear it. But then when I wore it the first season, everybody was watching it goes, oh, that guy's from Detroit. You know what I mean?
Boom.
and then you get a little bit,
Hometown pride.
Yeah.
For sure. Was it cool hanging out with all those guys that were, just throughout the course of the filming?
Well,
Actually, Todd said that some of the conversations you guys had back then, he said there's probably tape of it. Somebody's got it. But he said it was just amazing sitting around after the show talking comedy and just the conversations you guys had.
They weren't going to show any of that.
Yeah.
Like that was too. I remember some of those conversations, and they were therapeutic. They were, I think at one, a couple of campfire thingies, people were crying. There was really, but it was NBC at night.
Sure.
They're like, let's get John drunk and have him throw Noam into the pool. That'll be our out. So they didn't want us to go deep and deal with any dark issues. Although on that show there was a couple super dark things not dark things, but where we had to stop production. It was pretty. And
They probably want that stuff now.
Yeah, now they would, but back then they were
keeping it
Stop
happy
production
and
because somebody was freaking out.
two guys were going to fight, and it's a long story, but it was going to be
Was it you?
Yeah, it was me.
You and Todd Glass,
Me and Todd
obviously.
Glass. There were a couple, I don't know, higher ups on the show. There may be a sexual harassment thing here or there. Well, we all had to go into tents and make sure everyone knew we felt safe.
Wow.
Like that type of stuff. And then you had to if you ever had to watch like a corporate HR video after somebody said something, they're horrible. They're like, you would have to you'd have to sit in this tent you're shooting a show and somebody,
show me on this teddy bear where he
yeah,
touched
that's
you.
what it was. And it's like, some guy in the office, hey,
Really bad actors.
Hey, Jan, that banana sure looks good. And she's eating the banana. And you're like, yeah.
Circle with a line through it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, do not comment on females eating fruit in the office. But yeah.
And that was really new in that whole kind of, like you said, the reality show era. They probably, cramming people in a house like that, you never know what's going to happen.
Well, they purposely did, they would turn off the air, put it on. They would,
What do you mean?
Because nobody fought. We were all just sit around and we're comics.
So how long did they, what was did you have to land there and stay there until it was over?
Yeah.
So you weren't allowed to bounce at all?
No, you were on whatever it's called, unless you got, unless you lost or whatever, then they put you in a hotel.
Right.
But we were landlocked or whatever for months.
That had to be weird. Especially
But
all
it
you
was a
guys
lot
were
of-
working the road, I'm sure, and having to
Yeah,
go
you
into
couldn't.
that.
You had to cancel all that, and then you're just sitting there. And then nobody was arguing.
And they feed you, they give you everything you need, right? Like what? No?
At first.
Were you starving?
Then they started realizing if these guys aren't going to argue about anything, we have to start making it not so nice. So you're in middle of summer. Then
So were you coming up with fake arguments then?
no,
or
they would turn
something?
off the air, so no air conditioning
They
would
were
work.
just poking the bear, trying to anger them.
Just to make you hot? So you think you guys would just be like, hey, well, why wouldn't you just be like, hey, producers, turn the air on?
Yeah,
or why
no.
wouldn't you just go to the air conditioning?
It would be busted. They were smart because I was a young man, and so was Kathleen was a young lady, and they put booze out into the thing, and me and her would just start drinking, and then right almost like that where you're, you have a decision to make. Do I keep drinking more? Then they would take it away. Right, you go open up the refrigerator and there wouldn't be anything left. So now you're just lightly buzzed, and then that's when a producer would go, "Hey, John, can we see you in the confessional?"
Just lube you up.
And then you'd sit you in front of, you'd be on a chair, and then they would start asking you questions like, so, how do you feel about Todd Glass saying, that you don't, you're like, what did he say?
He said what?
He said what? Whoa, what? They would purposely, then a little bit later, you're like, I was hornswoggled.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So what was life like after that? Like, I imagine the gigs.
drastic change, right?
Yeah,
Probably the
so-
same scene as Michigan, except everywhere now.
Yeah. Then it just got crazy busy, for that. But it was also a weird time, in the sense of this was when 2005 seems like a long time ago, and it was, but there was no social media then either. So there was MySpace, but that was it though. So you couldn't even really grab look at all the new fans I got.
Sure. Just they didn't have a place to go immediately and follow.
Yeah, so that was, but you're pretty busy. I was pretty busy for 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, like you kind of.
That's how you keep them following. You just keep-
like any career, you
Sure.
get that wave, and then eventually that wave, you know, your little boogie board, you slide back into the sand, and you're like, okay, that wave's over.
So at that point,
Now the question: do I swim back out there and try to get another one, or do I call it a day? And
Right.
Then, and they're just floating. Okay, another one will come, right? Yeah, like.
But the older you get, I would think you just kind of figured that stuff out, and maybe all the stuff you were wanting when you're 25 years old, you're like, well, I don't need all of that stuff, and you sort of navigate like, this is what it's going to take for me to do comedy for the rest of my life, and I guess you kind of stumble upon that.
Yeah, because I did a lot of, again, pre-COVID, a lot of corporate events. That kind of, I'd probably do 98% of my year was doing big events. I was like, okay, this is my niche. Like, I was always the opening act for a huge, like
Plus,
a huge
you
entertainer.
can do your comedy and not have to change your comedy in front of those events.
Yeah,
you don't have to go, well, you got to be clean, or you don't have to change your act. So you can still do you and get paid.
Yeah,
well.
and I found this great little niche because they're, you know, at the time, there were big corporate events that had really big, usually singers. And they
Right.
always wanted a comedian to warm up the thing. So you really weren't ever doing a lot of time. The event, you know, the corporation people were actually really excited to see whatever singer was there.
Right.
So you kind of don't have a pressure of, you don't have a pressure of selling tickets.
You're not headlining.
You're not selling tickets. They're gonna either forget about you, or you're gonna crush. Or you're gonna do, you know, you do bad at those shows. That's possible, but nobody's gonna care.
Right. And they pay half up front
after so and so takes the stage.
Right.
So I was doing, and then I would get booked a lot because I was such not a pain in the ass. Like the people who put on those shows, they're dealing with a lot. So I literally, with a couple of those production companies, I'm like, put an X backstage. I'll sit on a speaker box. You know, I'll sit on a road kit, and then when I hear my name, I'll walk on stage, and when I'm done, I'll walk back.
That
and
sounds
I
like
don't need a green room.
Yeah, it sounds like your upbringing is shining through.
I don't need a rider. If I want anything, I'll stop at 7-Eleven on my own. Don't, you know? And I've gotten booked, literally. I've had people go, oh, good, it's you. That's why we hired you, because so-and-so is going to be a huge pain in the ass.
Who's so-and-so? Do you want to name?
There's a lot. I've done a lot. There was one, I guess he'll remain nameless because I'm sure he didn't know. We had to do a walk from, it's probably bad, I don't even know how to describe feet, from here to that exit. How far do you think that exit is from us?
40, 50 feet.
Okay, so we'll say 50
that.
feet. Okay.
What do you think?
So
That sounds good.
we're in the hotel, and then the conference thing, performing thing is maybe that exit sign, maybe a little bit more. So I'm performing, and then everybody was freaking out because the singer who was performing, it was raining, wasn't going to walk from here to the exit.
Of course it was the singer.
Wasn't going to walk, and they were freaking out, going, how are we going to, and then I saw people with, you know, heads, is there a, call a scaffolding company, and we have to build an awning. And they built an awning from, and
No umbrella would work?
She get splashed.
You would think.
You notice I said she. I'm just assuming, and
Yeah.
I bet I'm right. There's nothing worse than
so-and-so
female
is
singers.
an asshole.
Female singers are the
Female
worst anyway.
singers, right?
They're horrible. Anyway.
I did female singers I've done stuff with that I thought were amazing.
Now, done stuff with. Do we want to clarify?
Performed in front of open at a corporate event.
That's fine,
because
too.
those are
Performed.
different. Yeah,
No,
performed. Light
kind of
shiatsu massage. Yeah, fascial tissue release. Whatever. No. Diana Ross was pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
She did in 40 minutes. I bet you she changed 13 times. I don't know how it's physically. It was amazing. She would do like these magic tricks where
let me do that.
and all you need is a
can't
curtain.
change quick enough.
And then you go, and then she'd come out of the curtain. She'd have a different.
Doing this.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing because people are like, what? And she didn't phone it in. I've worked with a couple, and I get it. I've done shows where you're just like, okay. I've done a corporate where like I'm just gonna stare at the back of the wall.
It happens.
I'm gonna do it. But I've seen some high level phoning it ins, which I'm not even telling the stories to crap on them, just that I'm amazed. I saw Rod Stewart do one. Never seen this. Comes on in a helicopter, walks on stage, So I get off stage and they go, you are done at whatever, 8:07 and 22 seconds. You know, like I had a big clock. They're like, do not be on stage at 8:08 or whatever, 3:08.
Right.
You're
Right.
done. Don't even finish a word.
Out.
When this thing gets right out, and I'm just
Like, okay, gotcha.
And then I look and I leave, and then they had a place for me to stand. Literally, I go off to the stand. Host or somebody comes up, does something, I think. Helicopter was behind us. Goes, helicopter lands. It's a horrible helicopter noise. Helicopter lands. Roger Stewart gets off the helicopter, walks literally, he puts one foot down, grabs the mic. Almost the second he grabs it, Maggie May starts playing. Big like those clear karaoke machine monitors come up. But I think I got something to say to you. All right, just walk in, sang 4 songs. Didn't even do, hey guys, you guys seem like you're gonna get nothing.
No crowd
Just-
work whatsoever.
Man, I think gets done. Mic back in. Helicopter just takes off and leaves. And I was just like, that guy just made $300,000. Wow,
I guess it's good work if you
was
can
like,
get it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the famous
I know.
Red Fox story. Have you heard when he was playing Vegas? And apparently he was walking out. It was a shitty crowd or something. But
Yeah.
they were playing the theme music as he was walking out. And
Yeah.
well, what you tell
Yeah,
them.
yeah. I think the show was bad, or there wasn't a lot of people, and they played the song that wanna, and he walks out and he looks at everyone and he sees that there wasn't a lot of people there or something, and just turns, and then they just play it, wah, 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 wah.
They play him off and on.
And
I
they
think
play him on and off.
Stories
on-
made like fuck this and turn around, down to like a little 25 seconds worth of
It
show,
just-
which I would have loved to have seen that one.
Yeah,
It's very replacements.
yeah, and just left.
Oh man,
I've seen a lot. It's been fun.
yeah,
But-
you've played with some heavyweights for sure. So you mentioned 30 years. It must have been brutal when they. Like, what have you been doing during COVID? Writing songs?
Yeah, right.
Trying to stay sane?
Writing songs. I have a mandolin. I still haven't learned
no
how to
shit.
play
Oh,
that.
cool.
I bought that because I thought it would be easy.
Well, maybe we'll send stuff to you to put mandolin on.
Oh my! There's a Tracy Chapman.
Are you on Fiverr?
Or the
album.
egg. I'm down with you
Oh,
putting
I'll
the
put
egg
the
on
egg
there.
in the next.
You're on
the next
Fiverr,
thing.
right? We can-
Yeah, I'll do the egg. I'll just do that.
There we
go. If you want to buy tomorrow, it's an extra $25.
I
That's
gotcha.
how I do it. Yeah, it's
The
10
mandolin's hard. Yeah, I've had some people show me some chords, and it's harder than uke or guitar, you know?
Yeah, so the mandolin I got, there's a Tracy Chapman song on one of her albums where she plays a mandolin,
Right.
and I'm in love with the song.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm like, I'll just learn that, and I'll learn how to play that. I'm like, I don't even know how to start.
That's a hard one to start.
So then I want to learn just keyboards. I just want to learn piano because I figure, well, I can tinker. And there's one song I just said bucket list. I just want to learn how to play on piano, and that's Tom Waits' Martha.
Okay.
There's just
Nice
it's just
choice.
Super. Again, back to I love music where when you're hearing it, you're like, do I kill myself now or do I wait to the end of the song?
Right.
And then at the end, you're like, okay, I'm not going to, but boy, that was close. I just
Yeah.
love melancholy, super, super sad
Makes
music.
you sad. Yeah.
I just love it.
Do you cry?
Nope, I get awake and energetic.
He laughs hysterically.
It makes
This is
me
great.
I know, yeah, this is good, right? He's gonna be alone. Puff the Magic Dragon. All the kids grow up and no one comes to visit them.
Sweatpants, eating ice cream, and crying.
Petting all my 9 cats. You'll never leave me. So I wanted to learn how to play Martha, so that didn't work. So, but I also have that. If you see my house, you would go, when did your band rehearse? I did a bunch of TV shows, except with Gene Simmons from Kiss, obviously, and he gave me one of his guitars.
Nice.
So but I don't know how. No, he sent me to Gibson, and they gave me a guitar. So he
Okay.
goes, I have a gift for you. So I didn't get a bass. It was just a Epiphone. I don't know.
Yeah.
Epiphone?
Yeah, my buddy's like, they're not super expensive, but it's a good guitar.
Yeah.
And then I have a buddy who custom makes guitars. He Frankensteins them. So he made me an all Michigan one. So there's like
there
a
you go.
Detroit Red Wing puck in in part. So I have all this stuff. And
Sounds like we need to start a new band.
yeah, in COVID, or I could be a tech or something. I was in an Uber once, and the person goes, "What are you doing in town? Are you a musician? Are you in a band or said something like that. Because usually when I travel, I'm wearing like just all black pants and black shirts. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of, and then the girl goes, yeah, I kind of got that vibe from you. And I go, what vibe is that? She goes, yeah, you just kind of have that like tech vibe. And then the whole time I'm like, I couldn't be the lead singer. You wouldn't look at me and go, yeah, I'm a tech. Like you immediately go, he's probably a tech. There's no way he'd front a band.
A roadie guy.
Yeah, there's no way that guy would be in front. Yeah, there's no way. He's probably climbing rigs,
That is
plugging in
hysterical.
lights somewhere. Yeah, that's what that guy does. You know. But I have all those instruments. So during COVID, I thought for sure I was going to learn something. Nothing.
Oh, well.
Nothing.
It's hard to be inspired during that whole time.
I mean, I
didn't
tried
write any
writing,
songs.
but then I had a moment where I was just like, I'm not even doing that. I bought an old farmhouse in Michigan that was built in like 1840.
Oh my God, so cool.
How long ago did
Is it
you move from
haunted?
Los Angeles? How long you been back in Michigan?
Year and a half.
Okay, so it's
Right
fresh.
before COVID.
Is your house haunted?
Well, I found the gravesite of the people who built my house because my house it has original floorboards in it from 200 years, and I found his gravesite just from I did a bunch of research on the house, and there's a scary
Yeah. Tell me.
gravesite that looks like Dracula lives there. Like the tombstones are scary.
And it's on the property?
It's on the so I don't own the acreage, but the house is on 2 acres. But on one side is maybe 800 or 900 acres.
Wow.
The other side is maybe 7, and then the other one is a couple miles.
So you're
it's-
out there.
So it's 2 families that have owned most of this city, and then for some reason this little house is in. So when I bought the house, there were no crops. But right around this time last year, I was looking out of my living room. And I just see nothing but corn. And then I'm like, this house is scary as fuck. Like, I'm in the middle of this
The
house.
children of the corn.
Yeah, I'm just going, oh my. And when I first saw Children of the Corn, I loved it because I was 11. I'm like, yeah, fuck old people, kill them.
kill 'em, who
I
cares?
don't care about old people. But now that I'm 50, I'm like, yeah, I'm the exact age that they kill.
That had to be creepy too during COVID, just getting there and all of a sudden everything shut down. And just were you out there by yourself?
I was out there, yeah, and then there's some things in the house because I just moved from LA to there. You know, my steps going upstairs, it's an 85 degree. I mean, those steps are straight up. And they're kind of like even Peloton bike pedals. You can't even fit.
Hard.
When you walk, you got to waddle.
Everything really short in the house
You
because
gotta,
it's so
you
old?
got to put your feet this way, and if you fall down,
Why did they walk upstairs that way? I mean,
or they were little.
Their feet were
Yeah,
tiny,
I guess
man.
they were tiny.
Yeah.
Like I said, they were eating dirt and
I've
cardboard back
fallen
there to stay
down
alive.
those steps, you know, like, but it's a slip. No, it's like a quick slip, and then you're on your feet because it's so steep.
Right.
You don't tumble. You just kind of drop.
That's how the
Yeah.
ghost died 200 years ago, falling down those stairs.
And you had a couple, you know, there were a couple of those nights when you're just alone with, you know, your Tito's and soda. I don't know how, you know, when you just
mind starts to wander a little bit.
The self-pour era, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think bartenders do, like, with Tito's and soda, it's like a 2-second pour, but I was up to like a 6 goog, you know, and you go, and you see the air bubble moving, and you're like, go, you know? I mean, my Tito's and soda literally ended up having handles on it towards the end of, you know, you're like, I'm not wasting my
Put it on
time
a
a
dolly.
little pint.
Yeah.
But I went and I saw that guy's gravesite, had a little talk, and let's not do any scary ghost crap. I don't have time for this. It's been a tough year. And then I started working on a book because I put out one book over COVID that I was working on forever. It was a spy book, and then now I had an idea for this house, like a book about
cool.
my
Do you think
house.
he put it in your head?
Maybe he's like, have a message. Well, I did.
I will reveal secrets later.
I saw in the basement there.
Come visit my grave.
Watch your-
Sorry.
watch your step.
In the basement, there was a rotary phone, a yellow.
Oh, yeah.
You know, super long cord, and I remember. Keep in mind, it was over COVID. I don't advocate anything, but I may or may not have just taken a Chewy. A little piece of brownie that I got at the dispensary, and I had a bat. Like, you're alone, right? So usually
yeah.
it could go good on you, but every once in a while, if you're in the wrong mind frame, things
Yeah.
can. And I remember staring at that rotary phone because it's not hooked up. There's no line, But I'm like, what if it rings?
What if it
Yeah,
rings?
it's gonna ring.
That
It's
thing's
gonna ring.
It's gonna ring.
And my heart's gonna
Did I just
stop.
hear it? Yeah, and I'm just and then if it rings, I'm having this conversation with myself. Do I answer it? Do I just let it? It can't even go to voicemail. It's a rotary phone, so
Do
it's
I
just
wanna know
going
what's
to
on the
keep
other end?
ringing. You know, like if I pick it up, is it the house calling? Is it 1986 calling? Like nothing good happens when somebody answers the phone that's not theirs. Every movie I've ever seen, it's gone.
Yeah.
Horribly bad.
Wrong.
So I took it off. I took it off the wall and set it down. I'm like, okay.
And then it
won't
rang.
Now
ring
if
there.
it rings, I know I know something's up. But now I took it off the wall. But then I played a game called Guess What Animal's in the Wall for like about 5 months. Yeah, and you get a different perspective. Like red squirrels and chipmunks are dicks. Like people think they're cute and stuff, but their whole job is to, then I've been playing a game called What's That Smell? The
Goes back to the squirrels.
Yeah,
and
the
the
house
hair.
isn't trash. The house was was remodeled, so it's not,
My
there's-
grandparents lived in the country. You deal with that stuff in the country.
But I'm not used to I've been
You're
spoiled
gonna
in
get
LA,
used to it.
like well
Yeah.
water. I'm like, when does this stop tasting like blood?
Oh yeah, with
Oh,
the well
yeah.
water's
Yeah.
tough to get used to.
Well
It's like
wa-
sulfury.
Tastes like pennies.
sulfur and smells like eggs, and if
Yeah,
you just
eggs.
that
Yeah.
and septic tanks and
Yeah.
it's a whole. But I love it though. Like every morning. I'll try to show you. I'm going to do a little bit of storytell only because I was messing with an app that. So, that's my front. That's my front yard.
Oh my God. God's country.
Oh yeah.
Like
Perfect view.
like
Perfect view.
literally
Just
the.
green as far as you can see.
A lot of corn.
My porch. Like I sit there.
Oh,
Nobody's-
I love that.
If you build it, they will come, man.
Yeah. So it's way different than.
Your landscaping looks great too.
Oh, it's like I saw two eagles. Two eagles.
yeah?
I was out trying to kill. I'm trying to kill moles and I can't figure out how to.
Not
And I-
eagles though. You're not killing
I'm not
eagles.
killing eagles, but I saw an eagle flying
Eagle,
right
singular,
at me.
not both of them. Oh,
Well, flying like this because they just did hay in the front field, so then that means all the mice and everything. So it's like
it's on.
party, yeah. And I saw an eagle coming, but my brain was it's coming at me perfectly. I'm like, do I still have my VR headset on? Like, or am I watching TV? And by the time I realized it was an eagle, I was like, oh, where's my phone? Oh, unlock it. I'm trying to unlock it. And then it goes up and
there's
But
worse ways to kill off a pandemic than being able to stare at stuff like that. As much as it would drive you crazy, it probably calmed you too.
It's
Just be able to
perfect.
wake up and have coffee in the morning
on
or
a dirt
whatever.
road in the middle of the neighbors have cattles and cows and eggs. I get this whole year I've gotten all my food from my neighbor. I literally walk across the street.
Wow.
I go to a grocery store, but now, maybe that's what I'll do.
And you do like a 10-minute set, and then they give
do
you
a
some
10-minute
tomatoes or
set,
something.
and I come and they throw tomatoes at me.
Playing the new stuff, your new songs you've been working on, and then you have an extra corn.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm gonna.
Yeah, I like
I'm
that.
gonna I'm gonna write this song about an old house, and then I heard some guy singing about a dirt road and old water tower. I'm like, use all the adjectives. Just don't sing about vacation.
Okay, so we can't end the podcast without asking you about my grandpa. So when's the first time you remember hearing about my grandpa? And what's your personal Papa Willie story?
Probably the Muppets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's literally that's literally.
Was it the 90s?
It had to have been.
Earlier than that, I think. How long were the Muppets on even into the 90s? I
they
feel like I was
started-
really young when...
I
So it
would.
was 80s then, maybe.
Yeah, I would say definitely maybe even 70s.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Jamie, pull that up.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Don't you wish you got a Rogan guy that just? I can't believe that's like where Amazon just doesn't go. Okay, we're switching the Alexa.
It's Jamie.
Just the Jamie. I read a thing and I just brought it up, but you know how sometimes you hear urban legends, so you don't know if they actually are true if the person said it.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody about writing. And how I'm going through a thing where it's, I'm trying to work on material for somebody else, which I've never done before. where this
Okay.
person came to me, and I'm like, I don't
Songs?
know.
Okay.
Like stand up.
Got it.
And I was trying to get in my groove to write differently than I have over 30 years. I want to be a little bit more, I don't want it to come to me in a vision. I have to kind of make things happen quicker. So how do I can't, like I said earlier, I can't sit there and work on the computer because that's not fun to me.
Right.
So the house that I have has these, every room you go into, there's different view, there's different sunlight. I have a swing porch, a screened-in porch that makes that noise of an old, right? I have all these, you can't get more artistic than just going out onto the screen porch with
Serious
a
artist.
pen and a pad and just start writing. You don't have to be technology. You can just have all these moments. But I just can't figure out after how do I force myself to do that? And maybe I heard on somebody else's podcast, maybe even Joe Rogan's. I know everyone always brings him up, but where they were saying how your grandpa, if he couldn't write a song, he would jump in a car. Ever heard that? And drive for there was a writing book and drive for hours. Like you kind of go, you hear something, you go,
I feel like I said that.
You said that.
No,
that was you.
It's possible.
Joe Rogan was talking about me.
Was Joe Rogan was talking about you, how you get in a car and you drive for
I know that
for
he
3
has-
hours. But where because when I started doing comedy in the 90s or whatever, you would be in your car, and that's I would pop in. Again, I'm a mood music, so I put in. I don't even think when I lived in Chicago, I met somebody in Fort Worth. Met her, and she's like, "You want to go on a date?" And I took out my Rand McNally, map and went, "Okay, I can with a highlighter. I can I'll be down there in 14 hours and jump in my car, pop in my CD. And this old highway is getting longer. And go in because I'm like, yeah, this is me. This is my life.
That's what I'm doing. Speaking to me,
way too young to feel this old. And then I kind of would write in the car or the shower, but it doesn't seem. So I can't find that space. I can't figure out what my thing is. And I swear I just heard the quote that he did that for a couple hours.
I know that he said that he wrote Crazy Nightlife and Gee, Ain't It Funny How Time Slips Away on his ride into Nashville. I know he's, from Texas.
That's 3 pretty good ones on your way in.
Yeah,
to knock
like all
off on
those
it.
hits
that's all I'm
in
gonna do.
1 week.
Yeah,
on the way in.
For the rest of the couple of days I'm here, I'm just gonna leave city limits. I'm gonna hit, I'm gonna what do you have, that Old Hickory here? And I'm just gonna keep coming in.
Old Hickory Boulevard. Just keep
By the
driving.
way,
You'll be
there's
on there
Old
for 7
Hickory
days.
Boulevard. There's 3, most cities. The road should connect. If the road at any point connects and then starts up again 6 miles later, it's a different road.
We had this conversation with Kathleen.
Yeah.
Did you?
Like, yeah.
It's a different. You
if you've
can't
lived
have
here
3
forever, and they're like,
at different. Well, which one? I live off Old Hickory.
Exactly.
Well, that doesn't matter. Call it
Yeah.
number 3 then. I'm off Old Hickory number 3.
You can't just. If you hear somebody go, I live off Old Hickory, you're like, okay, is that in
where?
actual Old Hickory? Or is it in downtown Nashville? How about Brentwood? Is it out there?
Yeah.
Because it's in all of those places. Makes no sense. Not one big
Stops and
loop
picks
either.
up.
Yeah.
I've driven all the way to the end of one of them, and it just ends in a creek. It's just little
Ends in a rainbow.
ends in.
Yeah, I also saw a documentary on. There was a bunch of. Yeah, I think it was some great music ones. It was the history of country. I saw, and I don't remember the name of it.
Was it the long mini part, or was it just one documentary? Didn't Ken Burns do the whole?
Yeah, he did one.
He did one. So if I remember this one correctly, it was the first country group that was ever recorded onto vinyl.
The Carter family.
The Carter family.
Yeah.
And then it was about this
So
guy
they're the original.
who drove around, and everybody had these local songs that they would sing, and that guy would be like, "What was that song? The thing with the thing," and then he'd grab those, he'd write those, and kind of bounce it around.
Nobody knew.
And then he'd give it to then the Carter family would do. So it was a whole thing, and then from there it was just. It was so great, just how everything happened. But the thing I was impressed with, anytime I saw a documentary on Grandpa's, me trying to figure out what am I going to be on stage? What do I wear? You always see those examples of you go, or you just do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah. And they both work,
You literally go,
you.
I'm gonna, you know what? If I feel like sitting and telling you guys a whole story for an hour on stage, I'm gonna sit this time instead of, I should move around. That way the audience, there's a coolness of just being okay with yourself.
Yeah.
That even after
Yeah.
30 some years of me doing stand up, I definitely don't have that yet. Maybe that's why I keep
I think
doing
you
it.
do.
But I
I
think-
want one of those moments where I just wake up. I don't know if you glow. Is it like a weird glow where you're like, I'm the last dragon. I'm glowing.
I don't know. You tell me. Is it a glow?
Yeah, is it a glow? Is it
Am I glowing? Am I
Yeah.
pregnant? No.
Well,
Yeah.
I think one thing about successful people is most of them, whatever field you're in, entertainment wise, there's confidence there. And I think we all want to see our entertainers have confidence, right?
Yeah.
Comedy, so I feel like
Or confidently inconfident.
executing
Yeah.
whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my grandpa went from suits, he tried
Yeah.
the suits, he tried the short, slick hair, and then realized that when he just dressed like himself, he did a lot better.
Now, to be fair, there's probably the road is probably littered with a bunch of people that are like, I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want. And it just doesn't
doesn't
turn out
work
that
out,
well,
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's a weird,
It works for certain people, and it's two ways to look at it, and they both work, or not even two. There's many ways to come at music and comedy.
I just remembered, even though we're wrapping up, I remember one of the first jokes I ever told out loud to another human was based on a country song. My grandma's name was Lucy Liu, and you probably know what joke I did to her. I remember just being in the car going, Grandma, what? So this guy's driving the road, and then his first tire went off, and he kept driving, and then his second tire went flying off and bouncing off, and then his third tire went off, and then know what he said when the fourth tire went off? And every time she'd go, what, Johnny? I go, you picked a fine time to leave me loose wheel. That was my big.
It's brilliant. I think it's a perfect ending, actually.
It's a great ending.
Dude, thanks for doing this.
Thank
and
you
coming
so
down.
much for having me. I really
feel
appreciate it. I'm
honored.
glad we worked it out. Sorry about last Monday.
Yeah. I'm glad we didn't show up and start.
I got scared. I'm like, what? I'm not there. Was I supposed to be?
At least there's no time zone involved. That's where we usually trip up. Like Central,
Yeah,
Pacific.
Yeah, I'm 37 years old and can't figure out time zones.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That happens.
I've done that. Well, with this whole year, my 2020 calendar. Usually I just calendar everything, but I'm like, there's so few things going on. I'll
Yeah.
just remember everything.
Same.
Yeah,
Keep writing
nothing.
it. Yeah,
Nothing.
Still nothing.
File for unemployment. Circle. File for unemployment. Circle. You know what I mean? Check Pandora spins. Yeah. Check Spotify. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Thanks,
you
man.
guys.
Yeah,
Hey,
thank
I
you.
want to take you up front and let you pick out a.
Yeah, kind of.
You may have heard this, but Willie Nelson's here to tell you that you better believe it. I take it not only one day at a time, but one moment at a time, and keep at that pace. If you can be happy right now, then you'll always be happy, because it's always in the now. But first, give me some more silver coins, and I'll give you a fortune.
He looks just like him, doesn't he?
I want to be big.
It does look like. Yeah, do it. You got it. You got it.
Okay.
This could get very long.
I'm gonna give you my thing.
Yeah,
My
you
first fortune was to not read reading glasses. That has not come true. Okay, read the.
Oh, that's bullshit.
Okay, so this one. Here's my.
make shit
Yes,
up.
my friend. The greatest fault is that you talk too much. Learn to keep a secret. Sorry, Blake Shelton, and the story I told about the rain. However, you offer golden qualities which make up for your talkativeness, your anxiety to help others, and your consideration of other people's wishes have earned you many friends. So I talk too much, and I just need to not tell as many stories. So luckily I didn't tell the Taylor Hicks story. So good. I'm no longer gonna talk.
John Heffron is my favorite comedian.
Yeah, it's great when they come into the studio and talk. It's much more fun when they come in and do that. Anyway,
Fucking asshole.
enjoy your groceries.
Don't be an asshole.
I know your mama's name.
Did we free Britney yet?